Welcome to the Audit and Finance Committee. We have a very limited agenda today. The big thing is the budget. Limited as far as topics, but heavy as far as content.
Yes.
So we're going to start out, met prior with Linda, actually, and Brian this past week to go over some of these numbers here. And I'd like to have Linda start out with, let's get the financial report done first through October 31st, then we'll get into the budget.
Yeah, and I'll just do October briefly, because a lot of the content in this is also going to be covered within the budget book as well. So as of October 31st, we have an operating loss of about $89,000. Our operating revenues have been trending about 59% under budget, and about the same for prior year. Expenses are trending about 12% under budget. And with these kind of trends where the revenues are trending so much more under budget than the expenses, we're going to start seeing not necessarily operating losses, but we're going to have to start using our CARES Act funding more than we have in the past few months. Mortgage tax this month was a record for the authority, breaking our prior record, $897,000 for the month.
Just to give everybody a little history about when we say record, this is not normal. What is normal?
Well, normal, like in prior year, we were trending around 500,000 a month, so this is a really good year.
It's almost like on a bell curve. I mean, it starts lower in the colder months and it spikes up when people are buying houses, and then it goes down, but it's been...
It has not gone down this quarter.
It has not gone down.
No.
I've known in my county, United County, there's been a lot of movement with real estate, so this is good for us, because that's, knowing Linda budgets conservatively, so that's kind of pretty damn good.
Yeah, yeah, if you could look at the mortgage tax statement, all 4 counties performed very well. Also included was the reserves. We did projections out to 2025, had to do it for budget, so we included that in here as well. The cash flow, the MRT statement, we have the grant summary, statement of borrowings. We did end up having to borrow from the insurance reserve. It was about $1,750,000, and once we receive our STOA, we will be paying that back. We have not to date received our STOA. It was supposed to come early November, and we're still waiting for it. So that's, if you have any questions about any of these.
Yeah, real easy question. Where is the CARES Act funding on the?
It is under the federal operating assistance.
Okay.
To date, we've spent 13.5 in this fiscal year.
Okay, so without that, the federal assistance would have been just a couple $100,000 or so?
What we budgeted, the budgeted amount for through October would have been about 5.6. That would have
Yep.
been with our regular federal operating assistance, which would have
Right.
been the PM and the ONIDA operating assistance.
Sure.
Which we haven't touched.
Which we haven't touched, okay.
Right, yes,
That's the
yes.
piece that didn't, okay.
Yeah.
I thought we had received that.
This is the first year in a long time that we have not had to use any of our preventative maintenance
Yeah.
federal dollars towards
Okay.
operations.
Okay. Thank you,
And-
that's it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
I think it's an interesting trend in seeing how we go this year. We got a bunch of more months to get through here. I believe we're going to have some impact on health insurance because of people might have delayed procedures during COVID. You know, during that March, April, May, June, July, put it off. Self-insured kicks in. So we might see, and I know Linda's on top of that too, an uptick in our health insurance line, I believe.
I mean, we are expecting that. The offices were closed for quite some time at the beginning of the pandemic. But as, you know, people are returning, going for healthcare, I see that trending upwards in fiscal year '22.
Great, very good. Any other questions with that? Good report. Need a motion, move that to the full board. Robert, second. Luella, all in favor? Aye. Okay, excellent. We'll get right into 21-22 proposed budget.
Okay. So if you go to page 15, this is our draft proposed 2021-22 operating budget and financial plan, this whole book. For, as you can see, we did balance the budget for this fiscal year. Our operating revenues, regular line passenger revenues are budgeted about 51% lower than they were at the 2021 level. And this is mainly due to decreases in the ridership due to the pandemic. Special line revenues also budgeted about 27% lower than our 2021 adopted budget. Again, this is also due to the impact of COVID-19. Steve Cagle's actually on the call. He was prepared to speak a little bit about the drop in our ridership and the trends.
Perfect.
And how we assumed in the budget.
Steve, you can jump in.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Currently, our ridership is about 50% of what it normally is, and that's those are the riders who we expect to pay a fare. Our contracted services with the Board of Education, Syracuse University, SUNY Oswego, those contracts have remained. We're still providing more service for them than we are for the general public from a revenue standpoint. We're still operating those services, so we're generating more revenue percentage-wise from our contracts that we are general public. Obviously with the potential vaccine coming on board for next year, we don't know exactly where ridership will go. We anticipate that that we will still have services with the university and with the Board of Education, and we're hopeful that the trend of ridership will pick up beginning our first quarter next year, somewhere around April, May, as we get to summer months. So we're hopeful.
Okay, so I think that was good budgeting down the ridership. It's gonna probably be that way for a while.
Yeah. Advertising and other revenues, we budgeted $388,000 less than the 2021 budget. A lot of this is due to also the impact of COVID-19. We do have some RTC vacancies and some reduced RTC parking revenues, so we won't see the same levels as we had in the 2021 adopted budget. Operating expenses, or salaries and wages, are budgeted about 1% less than we were at 2021, and this is due to our restructuring and retirements. Other employee benefits and payroll taxes are relatively flat. Healthcare expenses, we're budgeting a little bit higher than our 2021 projections, but not quite at the 2021 budgeted level. And this again is one of those, it's hard to predict. This may change, and we may, in the final budget, have to adjust that number. Pension benefits, budgeted.
Let's just stick back a minute. I want to make sure the board's aware, just emphasize a little bit more on salaries and wages. This is something that I think that's important, where I think Brian and his team has worked hard with the reorganization to reduce that expenses through less personnel, but being as efficient as possible and building upon the strengths of who we have here. So I thought that was something that stood out to me pretty much. Very good, thank you.
See, I left off at pension.
And then
Budget-
once your salaries and wages are down, it drives the whole fringe piece.
Mhm.
So it all jumps on after that, so that's pretty damn good. Okay, Linda?
Pension benefits are budgeted at about $996,000 over the 2021 budget. This is due to mainly the actuarial calculation and some, taking into account some of the recent retirements. Workers' comp, much lower than the 2021 adopted budget, and this is due to the current trends. Our light and modified duty program has been very successful in lowering these costs, so that's a good point. Risk management is budgeted about $741,000 higher than 2021, and this is due to the increases in our liability insurance premiums. Purchase transportation, we're budgeting at about 26% lower than the 2021, and this is due to also the ridership trends due to COVID-19, as Steve has spoken to.
And the purchase transportation is our contract, SU, Board of Education, and when they're limiting their service because they got less people on campus and kids remotely learning and.
Melissa Brim's gonna, actually speak to our material supplies and our services.
Good morning, everybody. Materials and supplies and services were, we had to take into account of the impacts of COVID. So we took a little bit of a different approach and really stripped down everything and looked at, mainly the impacts of what COVID has done to the needs in materials and supplies such as bus supplies, cleaning supplies, and PPE. That's driving a lot of the change in the materials and supplies. We also took into account just regular increases in the everyday supplies that we use, and then also the needs that we will need in the future for computer hardware and software, as the environment is changing with the possible need to work from home. And then lastly, we took into account the 21 state fair and the needs for that. Similar in the services, annual contract increases, specific service that we may need for the impact of COVID, special one-time projects, and the New York State Fair needs.
Thanks, Melissa.
Very good, thanks, Melissa.
The fuel line was, budgeted mainly with, Jeff Hoff's assistance. We budgeted about a $245,000 increase over 2021. Jeff is prepared to speak about that fuel budget.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, our fuel budget is gathered information from historical data, gallons used with anticipated usage for next fiscal year, which is going to be trending what it is this year, decrease. And we adjust for the changes in vehicles. For example, we've had, diesel buses that changed to CNGs. We have to increase our CNG line. And then all of our diesel paratransit buses have changed to gasoline. Fuel is actually staying pretty much consistent from last year's rates. What we're anticipating is hoping getting the fuel tax credit. Clean Communities of Central New York, which they work with vehicle fleets, fuel providers, community leaders, and other stakeholders to save energy and promote the use of domestic fuels and advanced vehicle technologies and transportation. They're currently advocating for another fuel tax credit, which includes our natural gas tax credit. We're staying hopeful this will happen soon. That's what we got.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Lastly, the other two expense lines, utilities and other expenses, very minor adjustments in those lines. Things are very consistent and COVID hasn't had much impact on those lines. To balance out our budget, we have about 6 million, or we're anticipating about 6 million in CARES Act funding carrying forward into 2021, 22. Probably most likely will be spent within the first quarter of the year. And we budgeted our state assistance flat with what was budgeted for 2021. This was a recommendation by the state when we originally created our budget. We had an email from, or Brian got an email from a Bob Reed, that was his name, right? A lobbyist, and it was a letter from the Division of Budget recommending that authorities have about a 5% decrease in their budget. That came late after we had already prepared this, but we will take that into account within our final budget. Local assistance, again, budgeting that flat. That's usually consistent over year. The expectation is that we will be funded at the same level. Mortgage tax, I did increase it over the 2021 due to the recent trends. I feel strongly that will probably be the trend going forward in 2022. And that doesn't even take into account, the big projects that are upcoming in fiscal year 22 where we might receive increases due to those completions.
We see some cranes in Syracuse, which is nice.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have the Amazon.
No, I did not. That will just be
That's gonna be a nice one-time.
icing on the cake.
One-time hit.
So we balanced our budget for 21, 22. This does leave some conserved funds to go forward in the next years. So that's all I have for the operating budget. I do want to say, though, that this was a challenging year for a budget. It took the entire organization to create this budget, not just the finance team. Everybody was really great about getting together with us, communicating needs, trends, and, we were doing all this while trying to compile our NTD report and our annual 17A. So I really appreciate the efforts of everybody that was just on the call, all the staff, my finance team. Melissa Brim gave our budget book a nice facelift this year. She worked with Lynette Paduano in marketing. She provided a really nice template. So I thank everyone for all their help and assistance with this.
Yeah, and I'm very happy. I know the board is happy with the work that you and the authority, Brian, the team has done under some very uncertain times, and I think we have something in front of us that's realistic, and I think it's the best budget we can have under the situation that we're at right now. Do I have any other questions from the board?
I have more.
Okay.
We got quite a bit.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
But if there's any questions on the operating budget, we'll be happy to
On
answer.
the operating piece.
The next page is page 16. This is our estimated cash flow. Because we have a balanced budget, we don't anticipate there being a lot of changes to the cash flow. This does include the insurance reserve and these balances. Then if you go to page 24, Chris, the capital budget. Tara Spraker's on a call. She's going to speak to the capital budget.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
As
morning.
you all know, I am continuing to transition into the grants administration role, so I got to work really closely with EJ in building this budget. It was pretty impressive. He does some really great things. I'm excited to take a jump into this year. The projects in front of you that you see for Onondaga County and Oneida County, all of these projects are anticipated to be completed and paid for in fiscal year 22. All of these projects are also funded, and I'd like to highlight the larger projects that we have in here. The little over $4 million bus procurement is in there. There's the $3 million CNG rehabilitation, the contactless fare collection system, $500,000, and the maintenance software system replacement, also at $500,000. Those are the big, impressive things that we're going to be doing this coming fiscal year. And with that, if you have any questions, myself or EJ will be happy to answer them.
Do we see, this is Nick, nice job. Do we see the capital initiatives, the funding is pretty much in place, or is it still speculative as far as the funding?
All of the funds for these projects that are in front of you here, all of those are funded.
Okay, that answers my question.
We're good through 23, right?
Yeah. Yes, we are.
Because I worry so much about
Capital
things
budget
that
was
are,
really good,
Oh, yeah.
through 23.
yeah. Things that are always kind of at risk because of this right now.
EJ was going to go on about the unfunded projects.
Sure.
He's on the call too.
Yep, I'm here.
Next page.
So the projects listed here on page 25, this is more of the wish list of projects that as 100% state dedicated funds become available, we chip away at this list. Projects come off every year, projects get added every year. But as you can see, we have, a significant list of projects, but as funds become available, we do chip away at this list. If there's any questions about this, if not, we can move on to page 27 for the 3-year capital projection.
Next, please.
Page 27, Chris?
Yep.
Here it is.
Yep, thanks. So, as of right now, we are fully, or at least funded, out to the large bus purchase in our fiscal year 26. As you can see, we're We have about a $30 million hole right now. That gap is closing as the new bus procurement, which you'll hear about in the resolution, those prices came in significantly lower than anticipated. So that'll close that gap for that contract. Also with not having to use our preventive maintenance this year or potentially some next year, that money can go towards this purchase also. But at least for the next 3 years, from a capital standpoint, we're in pretty good shape. And I think through competitive grant funds, through the FTA, the 5339 program, which is about $340 million annually, applying for those over the next couple of years, I think we will be able to fund that large bus purchase of 64 buses in 2026. And also, if you look at Oneida, we're just about 1 bus short for funding there. So I think with those 5239 funds, we should be in good shape. But over the next couple of years, obviously, we will be keeping the board apprised of that.
EJ, what was the last year when we turned over the fleet in Oneida with those Orions?
That's actually that would be in 2026. So those are 2012s.
Wow.
So those 18 buses will be coming due in 2026, or 2024, sorry.
It seems like yesterday the buses are aging and we're aging with the buses.
Yeah, time flies, doesn't it, Nick?
And you need to replace some stuff for me, my back and everything, so let's do a capital for the board here for their physical ailments.
So we get knee replacement there for you?
Any questions for
State of
EJ?
good repair.
Okay, you're gonna have to back up to page 26 for me, Chris. Thank you, Heath.
Yep.
Lastly, we have our 3-year operating budget projections. I'm also gonna go over our 3-year unrestricted reserves. As you can see, we closed the budget gap in 2022. That was using a lot of reserved federal assistance and also having our MRT performing well and still projecting it to perform well, flat, going forward. We did have a little bit more federal assistance that rolled into 2023. However, we are back to needing our federal PM and our Oneida operating assistance to try to close the budget gap. But as you can see, in 2023, we're already starting to use reserves, and we'll continue to need them going forward in 2024. And this is just due to our average increases of about 3% in expenses. So this was a very conservative projection because there's so much unknown still. And then by the time you get to 2025, we are going to need funding. So without the state increasing our STOA to levels that they were and increasing them going forward, you can see we're going to have funding issues. That all rolls into our 3-year unrestricted reserve projections, page 28. And you can just see the impact of the reserves on here. You know, we started off 2021 with a $12.6 million balance in reserves, and we are holding it pretty close to flat for up through 2022. But then we're starting to use our reserves again in 23, 24. And again, we're in deficits in 25. Any questions?
No, it's not the first time we've been in a situation when we projected out.
Yep.
So we'll see how
That's
things
the first time we projected zeros in that green line.
Yeah, we haven't seen that in a long time. That concludes our budget presentation. If there aren't any other questions.
Questions? I thought this was very good. Appreciate the input from you, and folks on the phone. Appreciate my pre-gamer. With that being said, I want to bring this to the full board. Do I have a motion from the board to bring it to the full board? Luella, second, Robert, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, see here.
The only other thing I wanted to say was next month we will be bringing you the line of credit renewal, just as a reminder.
How much is that again, line of credit?
5 million?
Oh, yeah, that's right, okay. Good, all right, let's, finish up with, we have a resolution, R1, our 5-year bus, procurement. Is that EJ?
Caitlin.
Caitlin, I mean, sorry, Caitlin. I'd rather listen to you than EJ anyway, thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. So this is the resolution for the 5-year bus procurement contract for up to 92 buses. This will be paid for with grant funds, FTA, and New York State funds. This resolution covers both the 5-year contract as well as the first year's purchase of buses. So the request for proposal was publicly let on May 26th. On September 3rd, we received 3 proposals, and the evaluation committee determined that Gillett Corporation offered the most advantageous proposal. They offered a price of $430,679 for the 40-foot clean diesel buses, and a price of $478,571 for the 40-foot CNG buses. The first year purchase is going to be for 18 CNG buses and 5 clean diesel buses. This purchase will include Clever Device hardware installation as well. So that full purchase price is $11,521,544. I am requesting authorization to award the 5-year bus contract as well as the first year's purchase to Gillett Corporation.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Gillett, is they still based on the West Coast?
California.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so it's interesting how we go so far out and we get the best price. Interesting, because they still gotta get here, they still gotta come here. Interesting, good. Any questions on that bus procurement? If not, need a motion on the 5-year bus procurement 2025 awarded to Gillick and need a motion. Robert, second. Joe?
So moved, Darlene.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Caitlin, nice job like always.
Thank you.
Linda, any other business at hand?
No, that concludes my report.
Okay, that includes Audit and Finance Committee. We're gonna take a few minutes here, and then we'll come on in about, Brian, what do you think, about 5 minutes, about
Yeah.
10:05 maybe? 10:05, we'll come back on it. It's 9:57, 10:05, thank you.